Waking up early on the ranch has always had its charm. The mist rising slowly from the pastures, the smell of damp earth, the distant mooing of cattle stretching, the sound of peace, or at least that's how it was, until that damn buzzing started. At first, I thought it was just a mosquito with an identity crisis, an annoying, high-pitched, insistent sound. But it didn't take long for me to realize that it wasn't coming from any animal in nature. It wasn't the sound of a wasp or a giant beetle. It was electronic. You know that constant buzzing that sticks to the back of your neck and seems to laugh at you? That was it, and it was coming from the sky. I got up from the balcony chair, coffee still hot in my hand, and looked up. And there it was, a drone, flying in circles right over my ranch, like a modern vulture looking for a technological carrion to circle. It was low enough to see that it wasn't a child's toy. It was good equipment, the kind that films even the pimples on the foreheads of badly slept-on people. And it was there, steady, hovering as if it had an acquired right over my private sky. On the first day, I let it pass. I thought it was a kid playing, someone curious about a new toy. On the second, I became suspicious. On the third, I was sure it was the neighbor's doing, the same one who arrived in the neighborhood with the attitude of someone who's just starting out in the world. The woman who planted a fence before she even lived in the house, who put up a private sign even in the flower bed, who keeps sending emails to the HOA demanding strictness with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. She had already complained about my wire fence, the smell of my organic compost, the rooster that crows too early, the number of bees that hang around my orchard. The woman is at war with nature, but she bought a house in the countryside because she loves the sound of crickets, only recorded in a meditation app. The last straw was when I caught the damn drone stopped right in front of my tractor. I was doing maintenance, all dirty with grease, singing a cheesy song with my earphones in my ears. When I turned sideways, I saw the electronic eye staring at me, still, static, filming my oily ass with the attention of a surgeon on a practical test day. I had to laugh. I had to laugh to avoid getting punched by a flying robot, but I already knew. It was her. Who else would have the audacity to invade my airspace and still keep the drone gliding, as if I were an NPC in a rural video game? I let another day pass, but it was only to plan calmly, because what she didn't know was that on the ranch, we work with machines, with pressure, with tanks. And I had my little toy, the agricultural sprayer, a heavy, powerful thing, with a bar that opens like an airplane wing and spits out a jet that makes the bush kneel down and ask for forgiveness. It was an afternoon of clear skies, bright sunshine, cows ruminating peacefully, and I was there, waiting. The drone appears every day at 2 p.m., punctual as a Swiss watch. And it did. First it circled over the roof, then a more daring spiral over the vegetable garden, then it descended and hovered again, this time in the middle of the fields. I had the sprayer ready, tank full, jet adjusted. I positioned the tractor at the best angle. Everything was timed. And when it came straight at me, like someone who wants to look into my tired farmer's soul, that's when I let go. Spray activated. It was beautiful to see. The jet went up with force, hitting the drone straight on. A white cloud covered everything for a few seconds, and in the midst of the artificial mist, I saw the bug flicker. At first, it tried to resist. The propeller turned crookedly, trying to gain altitude, but there was no way. It collapsed. It fell like a drunken mosquito in the middle of the cornfield. It disappeared among the leaves without so much as a goodbye. I turned off the sprayer, got off the tractor calmly, like a Wild West hero who has just fired the last shot. I walked over to where the drone had fallen. It was there, coughing up dim light, wet with poison, with crooked propellers and a stained lens, a piece of modern art about limits and shamelessness. I picked it up, put it in a wooden box, and wrote on the lid in pen, "Found in my territory. Next time I'll return." It disassembled. I left it on her doorstep at the end of the day. I rang the doorbell and left. I didn't want to see her face. because it was no longer about seeing, it was about feeling. And I knew that at that moment, the woman was feeling it, feeling the shame, the fright, the poison, and the certainty that that ranch had an owner, and the owner wasn't passive. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of irritation knocking on the gate. Literally, 3 firm, urgent knocks, like people who think haste gives authority. I looked out of the kitchen window, still in my pajamas, bread and egg in my mouth, and saw the president of the HOA standing there, looking like he'd just been assigned to a diplomatic mission he didn't want to carry out. He had a folder in his hand and a folded folder under his arm. A man who wore a vest in the middle of summer and thought that an upright posture solved conflicts. I opened the gate slowly, with a cup of coffee in my hand, and the guy came out with that polite tone full of implicit threat. "We've received a serious complaint about your improper use of agricultural equipment with an aerial risk." I almost choked with laughter. Air risk? I thought he was going to tell me about storms, hailstorms, vultures crossing the fields at low altitude. But no, he was talking about the drone. The blessed drone that I sprayed with the precision of someone who throws poison with love. He handed me a written notification full of nice words to say that a member of the community felt exposed, threatened, and invaded in their freedom of technological use. The only thing missing was to write that the drone had feelings and dreamed of flying over crops. I read it all in silence. I signed it with my tractor pen and gave it back with a smile. The president was a little taken aback. He asked if I had anything to say. I shook my head. I wanted to say, "Yes, tell your air traffic control queen that next time I'll put the sprinkler in cyclone mode." But I preferred silence. Silence has power when the other side only shouts. During that week, the story exploded like a bonfire in dry straw. Some laughed, others called me a radical, and some defended the woman by saying that she just wanted to make sure that the cultivation rules were being followed. That's right, she wanted to see if I was planting legally, as if I had set up a meth factory hidden among the cornfields. The neighbors began to divide their opinions. There were those who came to pat me on the back, like, "You didn't do much," and those who pretended not to see me at the market, as if I had blown up the drone with dynamite. But what really made me laugh was her attempt to turn the tables. 2 days later, a poster appeared on the neighborhood's lampposts, unsigned, with a bold title, "The sky also belongs to the community." A manifesto. Yes, the creature made a manifesto. It said that the use of drones should be accepted as a security tool, that monitoring areas was a collective right, that open properties were potential risks to the neighborhood. The best part? A sentence at the end that said, "The real danger is the silence of those who think they own everything." She wanted to sound philosophical. It came off as overbearing. But, of course, there were those who applauded, people who have never set foot in clay, never planted a lettuce plant, but love to point out where the weeds are high. The HOA has scheduled an extraordinary meeting. The main topic, regulation of private airspace. Yes, you read that right. The neighborhood association was going to discuss the use of drones in the countryside, because a woman had her drone turned into modern art in the middle of a field. I arrived at the meeting on time, clean shirt, dirty boots, because people who work don't have time to change their clothes just to discuss nonsense. The room was full. She sat in the corner, arms crossed, face closed. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The rancor, the resentment, the desire to uproot trees with the force of thought were written all over her body. The president of the HOA began to read out the proposal, which was more like a UN charter for a peace treaty between the tractor and the drone. A series of paragraphs on harmonious coexistence, observation technology, and residential flight protocols. Some people pretended to pay attention. Some dozed off. There was me, holding in my laughter until my stomach hurt. In the end, the floor was opened. The woman spoke, playing the victim, citing fear, the feeling of being oppressed, the lack of empathy. She said that her equipment had been attacked without warning, that she felt insecure, misunderstood, threatened by an environment hostile to innovation. It wasn't long before she said that the drone was a relative. They asked me to speak. I stood up slowly. That's all I said. No one enters my ranch without knocking, not on foot, or flying, especially not flying. I sat down, shy, clapping. A lady looked at me like she'd seen the last man with common sense in the area. The vote was opened. The result? No new rules were approved. The community decided that everyone should take care of their own space and respect that of others. She left before the end of the meeting. This time, she didn't even try to make a scene. The next night, I left her drone, or what was left of it, in a rustic wooden frame, hanging in my barn. A trophy, a warning, a reminder that even the sky, when invaded, can become ground for resistance. The following weeks were a curious period. The woman never showed up again. No walk with the spoiled puppy, no note in the mailbox, not even the roar of her car's engine early in the morning. The calm seemed artificial, as if the world had taken a vacation from drama. But anyone who lives near people like her learns quickly. Silence isn't peace, it's foreshadowing. And this time, it came with built-in technology. One clear afternoon, I was cleaning the sprayer tank, preparing the equipment for a new application in the fields, when I heard it again. The sound, that damn buzzing. Only this time, it was different, more subtle, lighter, almost as if the new toy was smaller, more sophisticated, sneakier. I looked up and there it was, a new drone. Small, compact, with arrogance built into its metal casing. It didn't fly low like the previous one. It didn't hover brazenly over my head. This one was clever. It flew around the edges, feigning innocent curiosity, as if to say, I'm just having a little spin. But you could feel his digital gaze scanning me, looking for vulnerability, trying not to repeat the mistake of the past. I pretended not to see, but I did. I pretended to ignore it, but I planned it. Because if the first drone fell for daring, this one was going to fall for being too clever. I went back home, climbed up into the attic, pulled out the old box where I keep the manuals for my agricultural equipment, and found what I needed. The rotary mode control for the spray bar. A feature I've never used because I always thought it was overkill. But now it was a weapon. I prepared everything over 3 days. I adjusted the tractor, calibrated the jets, tested the wind direction. I couldn't go wrong. This woman had upgraded her surveillance, and if she wanted to play at a high level, she was going to have a response to match. On the 4th day, he returned. The new drone. It came early this time, at 10 a.m. when the sun is beating down and obscuring the view. Clever maneuver. But even that didn't save it. I waited for him to enter the corridor between the cornfields. The perfect space. Narrow, controlled, with the breeze blowing in the right direction. When the bug arrived, pretending it was just a coincidence that it was flying over right there, I turned on the tractor and positioned the spray bar at 45 degrees. Rotary mode was on. I pressed the button. The jet came out with so much pressure that it looked like a liquid wall. The drone tried to climb, tried to get away, but it was too late. I hit it full on with a double blast. The first destabilized it, the second shut it down. It spun around twice in the air, lost a propeller, and fell to the ground like a drunken dragonfly. This time, I wasn't gentle. I picked up the wreckage, took it to the front of her house, hung it on the gate with wire, and a very direct warning. Second attempt, second fall. Do you want to try the third, or do you understand? That night, the whole street saw the message. There were those who mentally applauded. Some people filmed it. Some sent it to the HOA group. Is the drone war over? But of course, she couldn't let it go. The next day, I received a visit from the police. 2 officers, polite, but visibly out of sorts. They said they had been called for vandalism and threats. They asked me if I had hit any private objects with pesticides. I answered with a firm yes, and the look of someone who has plenty of time to argue. I showed them the boundaries of my land, the propeller marks, the irrigation system. I explained calmly, technical, rural coolness. The older policeman looked at his partner and let loose. "This isn't vandalism, it's crop self-defense." They wrote it down, thanked me, and left. The report read, "No evidence of a crime, just excessive territoriality." Excessive territoriality. I almost framed it. The best part was when, a week later, an unsigned article appeared in the association's local newspaper. Technology X Tradition. The Dilemma of Rural Coexistence. It was a pathetic attempt to give a philosophical tone to a tantrum with propellers. It said that the countryside needed to accept the future, that drones could be allies of the neighborhood. There was even a ridiculous phrase that tried to be profound. Perhaps, by targeting the machines, we are ignoring the dialogue they want to build. What the newspaper didn't know was that here, machines only talk to fertilizer. And drones that go in without asking come out wet and broken, without exception. The woman? She never appeared again. No drones, no letters, no little face glued to the curtain. She seemed to have understood, or, at the very least, tired. But at the ranch, we never let our guard down, because if you think the sky is no man's land, one day you'll find out that even clouds have an owner around here. If the first drone was an attack, the second was a provocation. The third never arrived. After that note on the gate, the woman disappeared. Literally. Day, night, weekend went by, and there was no curtain stirring, no car leaving, no stomping on the polished sidewalk that she had washed every Monday. The neighborhood was at peace. The chickens walked around the ranch again without hiding. The cat lay on the porch again, without looking like it was going to be captured by a drone that tracks body heat. Even the tractor seemed to run smoother, as if it knew it was no longer being filmed with that reality show tension from hell. The HOA was also quiet. No new pamphlet on air rights. No agenda on visual approach technology. Even the president disappeared with his crazy ideas about rules for recreational flying. It was as if, for the first time, everyone had understood that the ranch has limits. Not of fences, but of respect. And respect around here is what keeps everything on its feet, from planting to sanity. But just when the dust really started to settle, an envelope arrived. No sender. Thick, ivory-colored paper, smelling of expensive perfume. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No date, no signature, just a sentence printed in a fancy font. Vision needs height, and truth, perspective. I laughed. I laughed out loud. I laughed like someone listening to a bird trying to sing opera. She wanted to sound enigmatic. She sounded defeated. That was a sigh of wounded vanity. A sigh that, even after losing, still tries to sound superior. I took the paper, folded it, and put it with the others, in the dossier of absurdities. But I confess that, deep down, I thought that was the end of it. Then, one Saturday night, in the pitch black, I heard a noise. It wasn't a hum. It was a click, click, click coming from the bottom of the yard. The sound of metal being fitted, a screw turning, a slow, tense, planned movement. I grabbed my flashlight, put on my boots, and went down there. When I got close to the border, I saw the scene. In the dark, disguised between the bushes, was a kind of folding structure, the kind you can assemble and disassemble quickly. A metal tripod, with a rotating base and an attached compartment. An observation tower. Manual. No drone. Now it was up to her. She was trying to set up a fixed surveillance point. A frustrated spy's nest. The woman decided that if the sky wasn't hers, at least the bush could serve as a lookout point. I stood quietly watching. The structure was almost ready when the weight of the humiliation fell for good. Not on the metal, but on her. The woman stopped. She looked around and saw that, even in the dark, even hidden, her own shame could no longer fit in that space. She dismantled everything in a hurry. She picked up the pieces, put them back in the truck, and drove off without looking back. She didn't even bother to disguise it. She left footprints, tire marks, and a part of the tower's base forgotten, half buried as a monument to defeat. The next day, I hung that piece of metal at the entrance to the ranch, along with Drone 1 and Drone 2. Now there were 3 trophies. A collection of limits imposed without shouting, only with strategy and well-dosed poison. I wrote underneath, "Here ends the sky of the curious, and the ground of the stubborn begins." No more came. Not her, nor anyone trying to measure my space with a camera or security pretext. The note had been delivered, returned, and framed. Privacy had been restored with the delicacy of a spray bottle and the firmness of a moral fence. Today, the ranch remains silent. Good silence. The silence that comes after the storm, when even the birds seem to sing more tunefully. The trees have grown, the crops have spread, and the sky, it's still free. For clouds, for wind, for stars. But for drones, not anymore. Because here, the sky is open. But respect has its limits, and it doesn't fly low. And if you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment and a like.